Today is Thursday, May the 29th, and I'm a little slow on the episodes this week because it has been a very crazy week trying to get lots of stuff done. In fact, I was in the weeds for 2 days just tying up a bunch of loose ends on the accounting side because we are transitioning our bookkeeping from overseas to a local individual. And we, a couple of months ago, had been convinced by the bank that we needed to upgrade and become part of this really big kind of commercial visa program that they have. Turned out to be a total nightmare. And I called them and I said, look, I'll even pay you money to move us back to the business card platform that we were on. And so with this transition of accounting work, I just didn't feel it was fair for our new team member to have to kind of sort through all that stuff. So I'm pretty quick. This stuff comes pretty easy to me, but it did take like 2 days just to tie off all these weird loose ends for reconciliation purposes. So that had me tied up, but still trying to move the needle. We're midway through lots of big changes right now that are ensuring our Canadian team, our Calgary team is awesome and they have everything that they need. So I can begin to pivot and begin really working on the business plan for the United States and looking to get that E2 visa in motion. And this week, I'm waiting to hear back from our Spanish lawyer because we're looking to try and get a digital nomad visa in Spain so that we can stay longer than the 90 days. So lots of interesting stuff going on, but that isn't even what I wanted to talk about today because there were a couple of economic reports that came out from the Canadian government. And I'm going to do my duty to serve you, entrepreneurs and business owners, just with some information, some things for you to think about, because it is important to understand the playing field that you're running your business on. And here in Canada, as you've heard me talk about, I'm looking to put my efforts into some other opportunities elsewhere, but I'm still a Canadian and I run a Canadian business and I'm accountable to our Canadian team. And so I too have to figure out what is the game being played on the field. And so here's kind of just some bullet points I'm going to go through. So as we know, no surprise, hiring is stalling out across retail, construction, healthcare, and education. So even though wages are kind of going up, we're not seeing a lot of hiring happening. My read on that would be, just through the eyes of a business loan owner, is instead of hiring somebody new, I might try to use AI and some technology to take care of some work, some workload, some admin tasks, some of that stuff, so that I can transfer higher value work to our team, the people that we have on our payroll. And so I would pay more for that person, but I wouldn't necessarily hire somebody new to take care of some of the things that I have AI doing. And a real life example of that from our business is we have somebody overseas who manages our inbox where we receive notices for public tenders, requests for quotes, etc. He goes through them, he pulls all the documentation, he uploads drawings into ChatGPT, gets a scope of work, then uploads the same drawings into Claude, gets a scope of work to make sure that they're correct, and then he dumps it into our system. We used to pay somebody full time just to do that job in terms of reading the drawings, figuring out the scope of work, what do we need to do. Now what we've done for $20 a month is we've offloaded it to ChatGPT, which means the fellow that we have managing the inbox, I can pay him a little bit more to do some other activities that normally we would, again, end up having to hire someone. So here in Canada, the theme is that hiring has stalled out, which is crazy because if you keep listening, there's some other interesting bullet points here. So hiring has stalled, which means employers are maybe paying people a little bit more, but then trying to find some efficiencies through technologies or through some other means, maybe like outsourcing or what have you, so that they don't actually have to hire somebody new and they can still get that same workload done. So I thought that was interesting. It looks like from kind of all signs, and I've got an episode I'm going to record about this specifically regarding the capital investments that businesses are making, but businesses are holding off on investment because this whole US tariff thing is sort of caused some noise. Companies aren't really sure, should they be investing in something? Is the investment that they make just going to get offset by a bunch of higher costs. So for example, say you were looking at purchasing some unique machinery, but if you purchase that unique machinery, is it now going to cost you more? And because it costs you more, it means you have to increase your prices, and it just sort of creates this whole inflationary effect. And so it seems like the math is telling us that businesses are just kind of pausing, waiting to see what's going on, and they're digesting the changes in the tariffs. From where I sit, what I can kind of see is really shrewd business owners are getting ahead of the curve. I saw this happen certainly saw this happen during the financial crisis, but even over the last couple of years, I've seen where businesses have just gotten ahead of what they believe is going to happen, and they're running their business as if the worst case scenario is already in play, and that if the economy and the business environment never gets to worst case, it means they're just better. However, human nature would dictate that when things are difficult or there is uncertainty, that people will bury their head in the sand and kind of just wait to see what happens. And in my experience, those businesses end up just chasing and chasing and chasing and eventually going out of business. I'm always of the opinion that if there's a change to be made, or if there's a difficult conversation to have, or a difficult decision to make, you just make it. You just take the punch in the face instead of waking up every day anticipating a punch in the face. And that isn't a behavior that everyone shares. I think some business owners who are older recognize that your first loss is your best loss, so just digest the change and get going. Other people who haven't been punched in the face before, maybe a younger generation of business owner that's really just kind of getting their footing right now because everything seems chaotic and uncertain, they're going to try and delay and hold off. I would tell you, don't delay, don't hold off, take the punch in the face and just make the changes that need to be made. Because what happens is, and even as far back as when the two trade towers got hit during 9/11, you kind of wait to think that, okay, the world's just going to go back to where it was. And the truth is the world keeps going, but it never goes back to where it was. It's always different. We now have something called TSA. Whenever any of us take a flight, it takes many, many hours for us to get through customs, through security, through whatever, because of the events of 9/11. So the world kept going. It just kept going in a very, very different way than what it looked like prior to that. During the financial crisis, I was there the day mortgages stopped getting funded. But guess what? Mortgages get funded today, but they get funded in a different way. There's a lot more legislation. There is a lot more due diligence. There are new bank criteria that was put into place. So what we're experiencing now, I think, in Canada with the tariffs and some of the business decisions that are not being made, is you just need to make them and get going. If you need to reprice. I've shared on past episodes that right now, your margin is going to take the hit, because if you can't just pass costs on to your customer, because not all of your competitors are doing that. So everyone's going to try and hold their prices. Their margins will shrink until such time as inventory or the product and service changes have made its way through the business. And then you'll start seeing price increases so you can recover some of your margin. But until then, your margin's going to take the hit. So if your margin's going to take the hit, figure out now how to start automating some of your work, how to start passing off some of your overhead to automation or to some better tools or to overseas. Do anything to preserve your margin while you wait for the inflationary effect to take effect in your business, where now you can start to recover those increased costs that you anticipate are coming. The other side of that is, if these changes never come, or maybe they don't come in the way that you're expecting, you'll be better off because you would have already taken the punch in the face, made the tough choice, and then you can get going. So those are kind of the two things to think about. Hiring has stalled out, which makes sense because there's some uncertainty. Businesses aren't making huge investments, capital investments in particular, and that makes sense given the tariffs. But for business owners that don't intend on closing their door in the next month, 6 months, year, or 2 years, this is the game on the field. You just got to play it. So what we've done in our business is, anticipating some of this stuff, we have made sure to create relationships with the biggest cost center in our business, which is labor. And as you've heard on previous episodes, we've aligned ourselves with an individual that's trying to build a labor company. So we have backed him. We are now helping to finance some of his costs in exchange for a relationship, obviously, but also for some better pricing until such time as we've recovered our capital. And it's a win-win for both of us because he gets to build his business. We get to lock in a component of our cost structure, which is really significant to us. And that's how we're kind of bearing through it. We're continuing to rely heavily on tools like ChatGPT to offload some of the admin work that we're doing. And we brought our bookkeeping from overseas locally. We placed it here locally so that particular individual can now free up the work that's being done right now by our project managers, because we are doubling in revenue and they don't have double the amount of time to spend on work like they used to. So I'm constantly, as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, I'm constantly trying to figure out where is the ball going. I hope it's not going in a really bad direction, but generally speaking, I think there's going to be just an overall slowdown. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. You can kind of feel it below the surface right now, but I don't have a desire to shut our doors and not do business. The product or service that our business provides is still needed in the marketplace. It just means there might be less need for it. And I'd like to be one of the companies that is still very active in the marketplace, providing meaningful employment opportunities for people in the face of this uncertainty. So that's what's going on right now. Again, I'm going to speak to the capital investment side of a business in another episode, maybe tomorrow or on the weekend, because I've been looking at that as well. But the fact still remains, notwithstanding Canada is a tough place, looks like it's going to be a tough place to do business in the next couple of years. You as a business owner, those are the variables that you have to work with. You got to figure out a way to make them work. And I've shared some thoughts with you about how we're making them work in our business here in Calgary, Alberta.